Chilling.
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentle drunks. Welcome to the Fourth Dimension. My name is Kevin Olson. I am a recovered alcoholic. Welcome to the Fourth Dimension. Big book study, that is. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that you guys are here. And I never feel more alive than when I'm sharing God's message of recovery in the beautiful program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And happy to be here and sharing it with you guys. So, and I am a teacher of the big book, and I am also a student. I am constantly always learning, and I learn from you as much as you learn from me and from the Fourth Dimension Big Book Study and from the Big Book Compendium. I am always learning about this spiritual way of life. It's ever evolving, ever growing, and it is eternal and forever, and that's a beautiful thing. So as we always do, guys, let's start with the set-aside prayer. God, please help me to set aside everything I think I know about you, about me, about my fellow man, about the 12 steps, and please allow me to gain a fresh new vision, perspective, and understanding of what you, what me, what my fellow man, and the 12 steps are all about. Amen. Okay, and as this is the Fourth Dimension Big Book Study, I always like to read the parts of the book, the two places in the book where it refers to the fourth dimension. First is on page 8. Bill Wilson writes, I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. And then on page 25, which incidentally is my favorite page in the big book, Bill Wilson writes that we have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. All right, we're going to be catapulted. We're going to be rocketed. And for all who will, for the sake of tradition and custom of the Fourth Dimension Big Book Study, everybody please put one hand up like this. Everybody please put one hand up like this. And everybody go, oh, yeah. All right, man. We are the lucky ones. We are the lucky ones. This is the good life. Okay. I've never had it so good. I don't know about y'all, but this is the best life that I've ever known. We are truly the lucky ones to be here and to be safe and sane and sober in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And my grand sponsor used to say, I like to say that I'm sane, safe, and sober because I didn't used to be, and I may not be again at some point in the future. Right now, for today, all I have is today. I'm going to take some actions today, put some deposits into that spiritual bank account, make sure that when life hits the certain trials and low spots of life, when I get my turn in the barrel, I can make a big withdrawal from the spiritual bank account and not come up insufficient funds. Okay. And I certainly know what that feels like. So today we're going to be focusing on steps 8 and 9. And in terms of making deposits into the spiritual bank account, all deposits in the spiritual bank account are great, but just you guys remember when we talked about step 4, we talked about resentments, and we said that there were some nickel and dime resentments, and then there were some $100 bills. Okay, I think it's that way with the spiritual bank account as well. I can make little nickel and dime deposits into the bank account, and then every once in a while, man, I will make $100 deposit into the spiritual bank account. And in my opinion, there are a few things that I can do that have more spiritual currency to deposit into the spiritual bank account than making amends. Okay. These are some of the biggest deals that we're going to do. Some of the biggest deals that I did in my life, some of the most spiritual moments of my life. And it was really just a miraculous thing for me to understand in terms of step 9, in terms of making amends to people, that I could actually clean up my life. That Alcoholics Anonymous didn't just ask me to stay sober and learn how to live in the mess. That Alcoholics Anonymous actually helped me to clean up my life. What an absolute gift. Because I think here's one of the things, guys. I think this is why this is so important. I've been thinking about this a little bit lately. What's the difference between heavy drinkers and the real alcoholic? A heavy drinker, if given sufficient reason, ill health, warning of a doctor, loss of a job, loss of a spouse, whatever it might be, if given sufficient reason, the pain of that will help them to get sober. Okay, the pain of that, they say, man, I don't want to lose another job. I don't want to hurt anyone anymore. I'm going to get sober. Okay, and so the heavy drinker, not a real alcoholic like me and presumably like you, but the heavy drinker will have something like that happen, and that helps them get sober. For me, the pain and the guilt and the shame of those people that I hurt didn't make me want to get sober. The pain of the people that I hurt made me want to get drunk more than anything, to numb that pain again. That is why I think it is so essential that we clean up the wreckage of our past and make amends to people that we have harmed, so that I can live in truly happy, contented sobriety. I'm an alcoholic who is currently sober today. I am not drinking. Why? Why is that? How can that be? It is because through action in the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, as written in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, as directed to me by a strong sponsor, through those 12 steps, I have accessed a power greater than myself that has removed my obsession to drink, because what I have found in AA is a sense of ease and comfort, the same sense of ease and comfort that I was always looking for every time I picked up a drug or a bottle or whatever it was. That's what I was looking for. Okay, Bill Wilson calls them worldly clamors, mostly those within myself, within my soul, and goodness knows within my mind. Okay, and I'm looking for a way to just get that, to just quiet the noise in my head. And as God would have it, a little, 4 shots of vodka will turn down the volume. Okay, well, you know what else does? 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the other thing, when we talk about service work and going to work with other people, going to work with other people, it's like the volume's just as loud, but at least I'm tuning into a different station, okay? I'm tuning into your station. I'm going to listen to your volume for a little while instead of listening to my own. Does that make sense, you guys? All right. Anyway, what we're doing tonight in step 9 is we're cleaning up the wreckage of our past. We're going to make amends to the people that we've harmed, and it's going to be an incredible thing. So my man Brad, I see, is on the call. Brad, thank you for being here. Love you very much, buddy. And let's get into the reading. And let's just, Brad, we didn't do a lot of reading last week, so let's just go to page 76. Now we need more action. And as I like to say, if you're ever in doubt in Alcoholics Anonymous about on what to do, simply read the first 5 words in the 3rd paragraph on page 76. Now we need more action. Action. Action is the magic word. Now we need more action. What do we need? More action. When do we need it? Now. Okay, so Brad, let's kick off from there. We'll do a little bit of reading. We'll do a quick review on step 8 as well, and then we'll kick off and do the reading on step 9. I'll connect some of the dots for us tonight on step 9. I'll fill in some of the blanks. I'll share some of my own experience, and then we are going to talk, I think most importantly tonight, one of the great takeaways from this study, hopefully for you, will be what was shared with me, which is a very tried and true methodology to tactically execute and to do a step 9. Okay, let's talk about how we do a step 9. Okay, but Brad, back to you. Let's start at page 76. Brad, you're muted, bud.
Rookie mistake again. Sorry. Hey, everybody, I'm Brad. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Brad.
Now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past.
So 2 things there just to remind everybody. Number 1, it says we made the list, our step 8 list, when we took inventory. Yes and no. Most of it, I think a lot of it will have been on our inventory. There will be other people added to our step 8 list that were not on our inventory. Okay, that was just confirmed to me just this week. Some of us were at a great conference up in Banff, up in the mountains this weekend in Canada, or in Calgary. Great event. World-class AA speakers. It was confirmed again. We are going to have some people on our step 8 list that were not on our step 4. We just add those, okay? Also, that line I think is key. Now we go out. Okay, now we go out. We don't wait for these people to find us. I used to hear that in AA club rooms all the time. God to put these people in my path on his time. You know, we don't need to push these things. I don't know, man. This is life and death. Okay. And all I know is our book says, now we go out to repair the damage. I am actively seeking to find these people to make amends. Why? Because my life depends on it. This is truly a fatal illness. We see people die from it all the time. We lost another friend last Friday. Okay, someone died of this disease. Okay, why would I sit around and wait to make amends, man? I need to be actively pursuing these things like my life depends on it, because it does. Brad, back to you.
We attempt to sweep away the debris which has accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. Probably there are still some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel diffident about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. To some people, we need not and probably should not emphasize the spiritual feature on our first approach. We might prejudice them. At the moment, we are trying to put our lives in order, but this is not an end to it in itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. It is seldom wise to approach an individual who still smarts from our injustice to him and announce that we have gone religious. In the prize ring, this would be called leading with the chin. Why lay ourselves open to being branded fanatics or religious bores? We may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message, but our man is sure to be impressed with a sincere desire to set right the wrong. He is going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discoveries.
Yeah, I'm going to give you guys kind of a five-point plan or five separate directions on exactly how we do a step 9. And at no point in those do we ever start to talk about spirituality and God as part of the amend. It may come up, and we're going to read in the next paragraph that we don't shy away from it if it makes sense for us to talk about it, but we don't need to lead with the chin, so to speak. Remember, Bill Wilson, first 6 months he was sober, he tried to work with 100 alcoholics and was always leading with religiousness and religiosity, okay, and the spiritual experience he had in the town's hospital, his white light experience, and nobody got sober, okay. And it's not until he, talked to people about in a calm, frank, rational manner, without ranting about spirituality, that anything really changed. And I think we're seeing some of that here when Bill is talking about step 9. We don't need to go in talking about God and spirituality and what's happened to us, and step 2 and step 11. That's for us, okay? These are people that have been harmed by us. We don't know where they're coming at from a spiritual standpoint. So let's just keep it simple. And I'll give you guys kind of the 5 directions that we take when we do a step 9 here in a few minutes.
We don't use this as an excuse for shying away from the subject of God. When it will serve any good purpose, we are willing to announce our convictions with tact and common sense. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. It may be he has done us more harm than we have done him, and though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we are still not too keen about admitting our faults. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. It is harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. We go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret. Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. Simply, we tell him that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. We are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so. Never trying to tell him what he should do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. It is a manner. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we'll be gratified with the result.
Okay, so a couple things that I'm gonna say, and I often forget to mention this because I've been living this way of life and doing step 9 amends and helping others with step 9 amends for so long that I forget sometimes just some of the basic things that I needed to learn about it. Number one, amends are always done face to face. Okay, at least whenever possible. I don't text message amends or Facebook Messenger amends to people. From time to time, we may have to write a letter. From time to time, we might do one over Zoom, but those are to be the exception. Wherever possible, we want to do these face to face, in person. Okay. I also, someone recently talked to me about this. I've never done this before, but I think it's a good idea to actually write out the amend. Write it out in general. Get it written out and think about what we want to say, and then maybe share that with my sponsor. I think the phrase solitary self-appraisal is insufficient. Makes a lot of sense here. What I think the amend ought to be, and how I ought to engage it, and what I'm going to say, and whether or not I'm going to do the amend at all. Those are all very good questions to answer. The other thing, just while I'm thinking of it, if I go and I owe someone money, do not show up without money in my hand. It doesn't have to be a lot. Okay. I see some people laughing, but it's like, I didn't know that. It's like, here's an IOU. That's as good as money. Like, they don't want to hear that. Okay. Nobody wants to hear that. If I owe somebody some money, they, even if I owe them $50,000 and all I can do is pay $5 a week for the next 10,000 weeks or whatever the math is on that, it's better to start. It's better to start now than to give up and to say, I'm never going to do it. Okay. Because whether or not, I start to make payments on it or not, it's going to change everything. Okay. So anyway, let me guys just do a quick review of step 8, just so we know exactly what we're talking about here. And I've started using this PowerPoint, and I think it's actually a pretty effective tool for doing this. So I'm gonna keep working with this for us. Can you guys? There you go. Can you see that? Step 8. Okay, as we said, guys, the first thing we're gonna do is write out a stream of consciousness list of names, all the people that I've harmed. Okay, then we're gonna break it down into these categories: right now, later, maybe, and never. And the book just talked about people that are on the never list. People are enemies. We're never gonna make amends to these people ever. And how do we become willing? Well, part of it is gonna be in step 4. Presumably, these are people who are on our step 4. Okay, because if I'm so angry at them, I'm never going to make amends to them. They're on our step 4. Okay, guaranteed. They better be. They're a resentment, clearly. Okay, so what do we learn? We learn that we pray for our enemies. We pray for them. Okay, and learn to overcome that and begin to feel a spirit of compassion towards them. We realize that people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick and suffering. And their suffering was spilling out of them and causing us to suffer. And we were not even the first victims of their suffering. They are the first victims of their own suffering. And they are the ones living in torture, and they're torturing themselves. They're feeling their own pain. Okay. And then in column 4, I realized that I probably put myself in position to be harmed by this person in the first place when I really look at it. And the thing that I'm accusing this person of, do I not feel the same thing myself? Am I not guilty? Could I not be guilty of the same thing myself? Okay. That's all step 4 stuff that we talked about. But let's start to remember that when we look at these people that I'm never going to make amends to. Okay. Let's remember the spiritual toolkit that we learned in step 4 when we're looking at these people. Now, you'll remember last week as well, we talked about, we categorized these people as right now, later, maybe, or never. Okay. And then we talked about, we have different geographical regions where we might owe amends. Okay. We joked about a lot of people in Alcoholics Anonymous end up owing amends in Las Vegas and all-inclusive resorts in Cancun. I can't imagine why that would be. Okay, but we start to make these amends. And remember, guys, we start with the right nows. Okay, and I go and do some of those. And I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, right now, the spiritual juice that I got from going and making even those simple amends that I wanted to do anyway was immense. The effect was electric for me. The effect was electric. Okay, and I was immediately lit up with the sunlight of the Spirit. That's how it was for me. And I've had many, many people say the same to me. The courage it takes to go make these amends is much greater than it takes even to do a step 5. It takes a great degree of humility and a great degree of courage to go do these things. Okay. But by the way, okay, so I'm gonna finish this. When I started to do the right nows, the way that this kind of tool works, or this method works, is that when I start to do the right nows, I get lit up from doing it, and suddenly the laters suddenly seem like right nows, and the maybes start to shift over as well. And eventually I may get to a point, including the prayer and the active work of inventory in step 4, where suddenly these nevers seem like a lot easier. Okay. Now, we talked about financial amends last week, and I just, if I owe someone a financial amends, I'm not going to show up without money in my hand. And we talked about doing a financial inventory every time I go through this, make a list of how much money I owe, and so I can get that one total number at the bottom. Now, guys, I want to share with you, before we jump in, how to do step 9, and we'll do a little bit more reading here. This is how important step 9 is in the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. A lot of people are under the mistaken impression that Bill Wilson meets Dr. Bob and Dr. Bob never drinks again. Okay? Anybody here think that? Bill Wilson meets Dr. Bob and Dr. Bob never drinks again? That's not the case. That is not the case at all. Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob meet on Mother's Day, 1935. Well, wait a minute. Then why is the anniversary of AA June 10th, 1935? Mother's Day is May 11th. It's true. Bill and Bob met on May 11th. Dr. Bob stayed sober for a period of time. He goes on a medical trip to Atlantic City and he drinks. Okay. He was balking at one of the steps. Can anybody tell me what step he was balking at? What step did he not want to do? Step 9. Step 9. This is the one that he wouldn't do. And so he goes to that conference in Atlantic City. He comes back to Akron. He gets sober again, and they lose sight of him. They don't know where he is suddenly. And they're worried, oh my, he went out and drank again. He had a surgery to do. There's a big joke about the surgery. And, he had to have a couple bottles of beer to steady his nerves before he went in. And Joe and Charlie always joke that Dr. Bob was a proctologist, which is a butt doctor. And man, I'm glad it wasn't my butt he was doing surgery on that morning. Okay. But anyway, that's what happened. He drank and he got sober again, and they lost sight of him. Why? Because he was out. He called it mending fences with his neighbors. He was out doing amends, making amends. And that's how important this step is in the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. The birth date of Alcoholics Anonymous, June 10th, 1935, is not just when Bill and Bob met. It was when there was 2 sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous, one of them getting sober solely as the result of going and making amends to other people. That's how important this step is in Alcoholics Anonymous. The birth date of our organization, of our fellowship, comes from the day that Dr. Bob finally surrendered to this program. And we heard someone over the weekend say, you have not hit bottom unless you're taking direction. If you're still balking at direction, if you're still balking at these steps, you haven't hit bottom, period. That's how you know when someone has hit bottom. Hitting bottom is not about some trauma or tragedy that happened. Hitting bottom is about finally me surrendering and agreeing to take directions, even the ones that I don't like or I don't agree with, that I am just willing to take these actions. That's how I know I've hit bottom. Anything other than that is like, I don't care how sad your story is. Yeah, I understand that you are homeless and you're living on the streets and you're having to steal and you're having to sell, whatever. God forbid. I understand you're in a lot of pain. But if I'm not ready to take those directions, I have not hit bottom. Which brings me to what I wanted to say about step 9. If I am balking at any one of the steps, guys, this is so key. This is so important. I want everyone to understand this. If I am balking at one of the steps, if it's step 3, man, I don't want to do step 3 with my home group. Okay. Or if I'm saying, I don't want to do a step 4, I don't want to do step 5. Okay. Steps 9, I don't want to make amends. I don't want to go do service. I don't want to pray. I don't want to meditate. If I'm balking at any one of the steps, what step is my real problem? Show me with your hands, what step is my real problem? Step 1. It's always a step 1 problem, okay? Because suddenly I think that I have found my own solution and I'm going to start working Kevin's program again, okay? People often say, like, hey, congratulations, good for you for getting sober. Like, you don't have to congratulate me for running out of the burning building, okay? Because that's really what it was. I ran out of a burning building, okay? And if I'm balking at any one of the steps, what I need to do is turn around and look and remind myself that that burning building is always there. And that's part of why we do service. That's part of why, tonight I'm going over to this detox place. And I'll be honest, I don't want to go. Okay. I love sharing the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, but that place stinks, man. It's gross. Like, it's really, really bad over there. And I must remember, and shame on me for feeling that way. I'm just being honest with you guys that I don't always come to this stuff willingly either. Okay. I'm not always just a happy little, soldier for AA all the time. Sometimes I don't want to do this stuff. Sometimes I don't. Okay. I'll feel much better once I'm over there. I know that. Okay. But that's part of why I want to go over there, because they will help me to remember the burning building and they will help me to remember step 1. Okay. And compassion is understanding that we are the same. And I will have compassion for all those folks over there tonight. And I will know that we are the same and that I need to continue taking big doses of this medicine if I want to stay well. There will never be a day that I can stop making deposits into my spiritual bank account. Okay. So anyway, that's a little bit on step 9 there. So Brad, let's go back to page 78. And we'll do some more reading. We'll read probably up to page 81. What we're gonna see, and I'll highlight for you guys where these are, okay, so that you can make a little note in your book. There's essentially 3 sections that they're gonna talk about in step 9 in the big book. One is going to talk about financial amends and finances. One is going to talk about legal amends that we may owe if we've done any criminal acts. And then the other is domestic. How do we deal with things on the domestic front? There's a lot more that the book says about domestic things in the chapter, how it works, and 2 wives and the family afterward. But in terms of making amends to family, there's a lot that the book has to say about that. And I will point out to you guys where each of these happens. So, Brad, I think we ended on in 9 cases out of 10.
That's right. In 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. Sometimes the man we are calling upon admits his own fault, so feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies sometimes praise what we are doing and wish us well. Occasionally, they will offer assistance. It should not matter, however, if someone does throw us out of his office. We have made our demonstration, done our part. It's water over the dam.
Okay, this next paragraph is about financial amends. Okay, so make a note in there. Make a note not just for yourself, but again, guys, remember, the major thrust of this big book study is that we make a transition from being takers to being givers. My hope and goal in my heart is that you will be taking your big book out into the world to go help other people, to go sit with other newcomers and take them through their step 9. Super helpful if I know exactly when they have a financial problem, exactly where to go in the book. So make a note for yourself. Financial, page 78, that's where we go. We need expertise from the book on how to make amends.
Most alcoholics owe money. We do not dodge our creditors. Telling them what we are trying to do, we make no bones about our drinking. They usually know it anyways, whether we think so or not. Nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory it may cause financial harm. Approached in this way, the most ruthless creditor will sometimes surprise us. Arranging the best deal we can, we let these people know we are sorry. Our drinking has made us slow to pay. We must lose our fear of creditors no matter how far we have to go, for we are liable to drink if we are afraid to face them.
Now, you guys heard me talk last week, pretty in depth about the consumer proposal that I did, which is just a way of a bankruptcy light, if you will. Okay. And some of us go bankrupt, and some of us, it's just about paying our bills. But the bottom line is, when it says we do not dodge our creditors, you may say to yourself, oh, I don't dodge my creditors. Okay. That means that we answer the phone call when MasterCard or Visa or the bank or the cell phone company that we owe money to is calling us. We don't just let it go to voicemail. We answer the call and we tell them what's going on. Okay. I don't know about y'all, but I used to also have, anybody else ever have that stack of envelopes that used to just sit on top of the fridge that I'd never open up, just sitting there and just let that accumulate? You can't open that, man, because you never know what's going to jump out of there. You never know, right? It's terrifying. Okay. That's dodging my creditors. Okay. I need to stay on top of this stuff. And of course, it's terrifying. I understand. It's horrifying, man. I told you guys I was ready to commit suicide behind $42,000 of debt on credit cards. Okay. I'm also here to tell you today, by God's grace and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and strong devoted sponsorship, that's clean, man. My life is clean today. Clean, clean, clean. Financially spotless today. Spotless. I love to tell you guys that. I owe Revenue Canada, which is like the IRS. I owe them money, but I'm paying that right now. And that was there was a accounting kind of error. Anyway, I highly, strongly encourage anyone, and you may be many, many, many years sober and still experiencing the pain and the fear of debt. And I want you guys to know, I understand. And I have been there. And I'm telling you, you don't have to feel that way anymore. You don't have to live with the specter of debt. That thing preyed on my mind like a mantis night and day. And I was getting phone calls night and day. Okay. And we don't dodge our creditors. I had to respond to them, and I had to know what was going on. And I had to go see a bankruptcy trustee, and I had to sit down and let him do a financial inventory with me and help me understand what was what. And it was terrifying, but it was also one of the most honest and genuinely authentic spiritual moments of my life, sitting there with that bankruptcy trustee. I remember the moment that I signed the documents. And I also remember the moment that I was done paying it off and it was all done. And almost the next day, I started getting calls from credit card companies that wanted to give me credit cards again. You know, they know what they're doing. But anyway, that's financial stuff. If you're feeling that way, you're living that way, please let me know. Reach out to me, and I can tell you what my experience was. And in Calgary, anyway, I can give you some guidance, and I can give you some direction, guidance anyway. We don't have to live that way. You don't have to feel that way anymore. Okay. So let's talk about legal. Perhaps we have committed a criminal offense.
Perhaps we have committed a criminal offense which might land us in jail if it were known to the authorities. We may be short in our accounts and unable to make good. We have already admitted this in confidence to another person, but we are sure we would be imprisoned or lose our job if it were known. Maybe it's only a petty offense such as padding the expense account. Most of us have done that sort of thing. Maybe we are divorced and have remarried, but haven't kept up the alimony to number one. She is indignant about it and has a warrant out for our arrest. That's a common form of trouble too. Although these reparations take innumerable forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding. Reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any length to find a spiritual experience, we ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. We may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything. Usually, however, other people are involved. Therefore, we are not to be the hasty or foolish martyr who would needlessly sacrifice others to save himself from the alcoholic pit. A man we know had remarried. Because of resentment and drinking, he had not paid alimony to his first wife. She was furious. She went to court and got an order for his arrest. He had commenced our way of life, had secured a position, and was getting his head above water. It would have been impressive heroics if he had walked up to the judge and said, "Here I am." We thought he ought to be willing to do that if necessary, but if he were in jail, he could provide nothing for either family. We suggested he write his first wife, admitting his faults and asking forgiveness. He did and was sent a small amount of money. He told her what he would try to do in the future. He said he was perfectly willing to go to jail if she insisted. Of course, she did not, and the whole situation has long since been adjusted. Before taking drastic action, which might implicate other people, we secure their consent. If we have obtained permission, have consulted with others, asked God to help, and the drastic step is indicated, we must not shrink. This brings to mind a story about one of our friends. While drinking, he accepted a sum of money from a bitterly hated business rival, giving him no receipt for it. He subsequently denied having received the money and used the incident as a basis for discrediting the man. He thus used his own wrongdoing as a means of destroying the reputation of another. In fact, his rival was ruined. He felt that he had done a wrong he could not possibly make right. If he opened that old affair, he was afraid it would destroy the reputation of his partner, disgrace his family, and take away his means of livelihood. What right had he to involve those dependent upon him? How could he possibly make a public statement exonerating his rival? After consulting with his wife and partner, he came to the conclusion that it was better to take those risks than to stand before his creator guilty of such ruinous slander. He saw that he had to place the outcome in God's hands, or he would soon start drinking again, and all would be lost anyhow. He attended church for the first time in many years. After the sermon, he quietly got up and made an explanation. His action met widespread approval, and today he is one of the most trusted citizens of his town. This all happened years ago.
Okay, so that's what we have given to us in the big book on criminal and legal issues. Okay, and I will tell you that these can get very, very complex sometimes. Very, very complex, very complicated legal issues. You know, the line, I think one of the truest lines in the book is that their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. Okay. And in that case, guys, I'm going to talk about this in a minute. In terms of step 9, we never do step 9 without a sponsor, ever. Okay. If you do not have a sponsor, do not do step 9. Okay. And I strongly encourage you to consider getting a sponsor immediately. Just in general in AA, let alone doing step 9. Okay, because a lot of these things look a certain way to me, and that way that it looks is not grounded in reality whatsoever. Okay, and a sponsor can help me to discern what is real and what is not real without any emotion or judgment attached to the idea or the situation. They're completely removed, and they can help me to see what's what. As well, they probably have some experience with doing 9s themselves. I will also tell you, you know, I had a legal issue when I first got sober. I was, let's say, creative with other people's credit cards. Okay, and it was a big problem for me. I had essentially, well, I don't know if the statute of limitations has run out on it or not, but I had some problems, man. I had some problems with in that area, and I remember sitting with my sponsor. I mean, it was just one of those great AA moments, sitting with my sponsor and my sponsor's sponsor and my sponsor's sponsor's sponsor, who had been sober, you know, 780 years or something like that, you know. And we all sat at Kane's Harley Davidson diner and drank coffee and ate French fries and sat with this book and prayed and talked about what the right thing to do was for for that amend. I only mention that, guys, because number one, it's essential to have a sponsor when I'm going through this stuff. And number two, that sponsor and other elders in the program have experience and have seen things. We get a couple of examples in this book. How many hundreds of thousands of examples do you think are contained in the minds of old timers about what works in AA and what did not work, what was effective in amends and what was not effective? Okay. And they can bring that to bear on our current situation. Okay. It's very, very important to seek outside counsel from our sponsors when we're going to go do this stuff. Also, when we get to, I'll tell you guys, I'll take you guys through tactically how we do step 9 in a moment. We're going to talk about the difference between direct amends and indirect amends. Okay. Step 9 says, made direct amends wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. There are times where it is possible for me to make direct amends to the person that I harmed. There are times where that is not possible. For legal reasons, for emotional reasons, whatever. I am a strong believer that when we cannot make a direct amend, I can make an indirect amend and still balance out the cosmic balance, the karma of the universe in terms of paying it back just in an indirect way. Does that make sense to you guys? So for example, I'll share with you like the credit card thing. Like, no, I wasn't going to be able to go to MasterCard and, you know, do a mea culpa and like lock me up. Okay. For the same reasons that this guy talked about here. I mean, it would have destroyed, it would have, you know, it would have been really, really bad if that would have happened. So what we do in a situation like that, what I did was estimate the amount of money that I probably would have owed. Okay. And in that case, I found a charity that was supported by whatever that organization was. And I paid that same amount of money back to an organization, a charity that was supported by that organization. Sometimes that may be the most effective way that I can make amends. I can do that anonymously, and I can know that I've done my utmost to clean up the past. Okay. Then I also don't live that way anymore. And I'm also a believer that every time I'm with one of my sponsees and they have financial issues with their credit cards, I'm also sort of paying back that cosmic debt. Okay. So anyway, I'm getting into step 9 a little bit too much. Brad, let's keep reading the next section, guys. Page 80, the next section. Make a little note here. So just to clarify again, on page 78, okay, that paragraph, most alcoholics owe money. That's financial amends. The next paragraph, I don't know if I pointed this out. If I didn't, I apologize. Perhaps we have committed a criminal offense. Legal. This is where legal issues, where the book talks about legal. So we have financial, most alcoholics owe money, legal, perhaps we've committed a criminal offense, and that takes us all the way down to the bottom of page 80. The chances are we have domestic troubles, domestic situations with relationships, situations at home, how we can make amends, okay? So let's get started, page 80. The chances are we have domestic troubles. Brad.
The chances are we have domestic troubles. Perhaps we are mixed up with women in a fashion we wouldn't care to have advertised. We doubt if, in this respect, alcoholics are fundamentally much worse than other people. But drinking does complicate sex relations in the home. After a few years with an alcoholic, a wife gets worn out, resentful, and uncommunicative. How could she be anything else? The husband begins to feel lonely, sorry for himself. He commences to look around in the nightclubs or their equivalent for something besides liquor. Perhaps he is having a secret and exciting affair with the girl who understands. In fairness, we must say that she may understand, but what are we going to do about a thing like that? A man so involved often feels very remorseful at times, especially if he is married to a loyal and courageous girl who has literally gone through hell for him. Whatever the situation, we usually have to do something about it. If we are sure our wife does not know, should we tell her? Not always, we think. If she knows in a general way that we have been wild, should we tell her in detail? Undoubtedly, we should admit our fault. She may insist on knowing all the particulars. She will want to know who the woman is and where she is. We feel we ought to say to her that we have no right to involve another person. We are sorry for what we have done, and God willing, it shall not be repeated. More than that we cannot do. We have no right to go further, though there may be justifiable exceptions, and though we wish to lay down no rule of any sort, we have often found this is the best course to take. Our design for living is not a one-way street. It is as good for the wife as for the husband. If we can forget, so can she. It is better, however, that one does not needlessly name a person upon whom she can vent jealousy. Perhaps there are some cases where the utmost frankness is demanded. No outsider can appraise such an intimate situation. It may be that both will decide that the way to good sense and loving kindness is to let bygones be bygones. Each might pray about it, having the other one's happiness uppermost in mind. Keep it always in sight that we are dealing with that most terrible human emotion, jealousy. Good generalship may decide that the problem be attacked on the flank rather than risk a face-to-face combat. If
You
we
know,
have
guys, one of the things that I want to point out here, I mean, what we're talking about here in the book really is infidelity. Okay, infidelity. What do we do if we've cheated on our partner? And one of the things about infidelity, you know, a full disclosure of everything, sometimes can cause harm to our partner, but sometimes therapists will say that a full disclosure is the only way that a couple will ever be able to move forward if we really want to stay in the relationship. A full disclosure of everything we have done. Sometimes therapists will say, I know because I've chatted with other guys about this. I know guys that have had to do a full disclosure of everything with their partner. And sometimes as a couple, that's the only thing, because, you know, my sponsor used to say, Kevin, the truth, it rings true. You guys heard that phrase before? It rings true. And there's something about like the absolute truth will just eradicate a lie and all the deceit. And sometimes that's what couples need to do. So we can't lay down any rule of any sort for any kind of couple. I think the best advice really is to go back to step 4 and take a look at what my God-given sex ideal is and stop being infidelity with my partner. Okay, that's the thing to do, and don't live that way of life in the first place. The other thing I want to say about it is, if I have a guy who comes to me that is in a place where he has cheated on his wife, I want to know, is this a one-time thing where you fell in love with someone else, so to speak, or believe that you had, and this affair happened, or is this a serial thing that is happening with multiple women? Because at that point, I don't believe that this is an alcoholism problem anymore. You know, we talked about this in step 4. Sometimes it's a step 6 and 7 problem in Alcoholics Anonymous, and sometimes it's a step 1 problem in Sex Addicts Anonymous. Okay, and I believe that. And I think it's important to find out from guys, if there is infidelity, what are we talking about here? And what is the scope of it? And I'll tell you guys, I had this conversation with someone just on Saturday. A guy came to me and said, hey, I've done this, and we needed to talk about it. We needed to get real about it. And we needed to put these things in the light. Okay. These things die in the light, and we put them in the light. Okay. And God can shine his mercy and his glorious healing love onto these things. And sometimes we can find a way through them. Okay. Okay, Brad, back to you.
If we have no such complication, there is plenty we should do at home. Sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the only thing he needs to do is to keep sober. Certainly he must keep sober, for there will be no home if he doesn't. But he is yet a long way from making good to the wife or parents whom for years he has so shockingly treated. Passing all understanding is the patience mothers and wives have had with alcoholics. Had this not been so, many of us would have no homes today, would perhaps be dead. The alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken. Sweet relationships are dead. Affections have been uprooted. Selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. He is like the farmer who came up out of his cyclone cellar to find his home ruined. To his wife, he remarked, "Don't see anything the matter here, Ma. Ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing?" Yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fill the bill at all. We ought to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them. Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are partly responsible. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation what our creator that our creators show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. Unless one's family expresses a desire to live upon spiritual principles, we think we ought not to urge them. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matters. They will change in time. Our behavior will convince them more than our words. We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness would make a skeptic out of anyone. There may be some wrongs we can never fully right. We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves that we would right them if we could. Some people cannot be seen. We send them an honest letter. And there may be a valid reason for postponement in some cases, but we don't delay if it can be avoided. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone. If we are painstaking about this phase of
Oh,
our
you know what,
development,
Brad, we're gonna, we'll pause there.
okay,
We're about to read the Step 9 promises that are, have become famous in Alcoholics Anonymous. We read them a lot. Those are the guiding principles, though, there, guys. Sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble. Okay? Sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble. Okay? Those are the guiding principles. And then in the step 9 in the 12 and 12, it also says a careful sense of timing. A careful sense of timing. Okay. And that brings me, guys, to what I want to share with you about step 9, how we do with step 9. And we're going to go through this pretty quickly today. We'll probably do a little review on it next week. But this is how I was taught and have been taught and have been continuing to teach for many, many years with many, many members of AA, many, many sponsees, how to do step 9. Okay. So first there, the big note, always and only with a sponsor. Okay. And that really underscores the idea of a careful sense of timing. Okay. Because I might have people on a right now list doesn't mean that I need to go make that amend with them right now. Sometimes that's the worst thing I can do. You know who guys often have on the right now list is every ex-girlfriend they ever had. My motives are pure, sponsor. I promise. Let me go make amends to all my ex-girlfriends. Okay. And I will tell you guys that with the guys that I sponsor, my default answer to a guy that wants to go make amends to his ex-girlfriend is no. No, there's no reason for you to go do that. However, with that said, if you want to try and give me a valid spiritual-based, recovery-based reason, that unselfish reason why it's a good idea for you to go make amends to this woman, I'm willing to listen. But for the most part, believe me, her life has moved on. We don't need to go and uproot that anymore. And we can talk about different, perhaps indirect ways of making those amends. In terms of step 9, though, guys, these are the 5 points that I share with my sponsees. Why I'm here, how I harmed them, is there anything else, how can I amend, and is there anyone else? So let's talk about each one of these individually. So the first thing is, why am I here? I explained to them. As you may or may not know, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm in recovery. It's a 12-step program, and one of the steps is about making amends to people that I've harmed. And in order for me to get well and recover from this disease, it's necessary for me to make amends to people that I've harmed. And I believe that you're one of those people. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Okay. And that something like that can work both for setting up the amend and then going to make the amend in person. Okay. So as I said, we don't text message or Snapchat or Instagram or email our amends to people, but we can use those tools while we're trying to set up an amend with someone. Facebook can be a good tool to find people to say, you know, I have some things from our past that I would like to talk to you about. I'm in a period of life where I'm trying to clean up some of the things from my past. I would really like a chance to clear the air with you. Do you have some time? 15 minutes, whenever it's convenient for you. Again, we want to be sensible, tactful, and considerate. I'm considerate of their time. Okay. Then when I sit down with them, I explain why I'm there. Okay. As I just kind of outlined to you. Now, it's up to me if I want to keep this anonymous or not in terms of my alcoholism. If I don't want to say I'm a member of AA, maybe for a professional reason or a legal reason, I can just say I'm going through a period of my life where I'm cleaning up some of the unfortunate circumstances of my past, including people that I've harmed, and making amends to them. And that's what I'm here to do today. Okay. How I harmed them. Number two, how did I harm them? I want to tie it to a defect of character. So it's not just I stole the car, it's when I stole the car from you, Mom, I was selfish and dishonest and inconsiderate. When I didn't show up at your birthday for 4 years in a row, after I kept telling you I was going to come and then never showed up, that was very selfish and inconsiderate of me. And I want to describe these things in a general way, how I harmed them. I don't need to get into or relive traumatic details with them. Okay. And again, I want to talk about these things with a sponsor who can give me better judgment and clarity without any emotion attached to the plan or the idea of how I'm going to go make this amend. Okay. Now, and this is one of the magical turning points. I would say this is one of the most important things in making an amend. After I tell them how I harmed them and what I have to say, I want to ask them, is there anything else that you want to talk about? Are there any other ways that I've harmed you that I haven't mentioned that I'm not aware of? I'm here to listen. Okay. And then I listen. I don't debate. I don't argue. I don't justify. I don't rationalize. I sit and I listen. And I will never get a better lens into steps 6 and 7, how my selfishness and self-centeredness have harmed other people, than I will right now in this moment. You guys remember last week I said to you, you know, I don't believe that I actually work on steps 6 and 7 on my defects of character in 6 and 7. This is where I get a real good, crystal clear lens into my behavior and my personality defects of how I've harmed other people when I listen to what they have to say here. Okay. Now, how can I amend? How can I make this amend? Oh, in fact, sure. Sorry, guys. This came over from the other one. I mean, it's also it's all good for 6 and 7. I didn't mean for that to be there. There we go. Okay, how can I make this amend? What can I do to repair this relationship? I'm willing to do whatever you ask, okay? That is the exact line that my sponsor told me to say. I'm willing to do whatever you ask, okay? And people will then say, well, what if they ask you to do something you're not willing to do? Then let them know, okay, I need to consider that. I need to think on that a little bit and how I'm going to achieve that. Can I talk to my sponsor in AA and get back to you? Okay, and that's what you do. Then you bring it back to the sponsor. But I'm going to tell you, 98% of the time, like 98% of the time, when I have made amends and when my sponsees make amends, the people are going to say, just stay sober and keep doing what you're doing. This right now was very good. That's all you need to do. Okay. Then is there any, now this, so for many, many years, guys, I taught just these first 4 steps, these first 4 items as being how we do a step 4, just those first 4. What do I, here's what I'm doing, how I harmed you, is there anything else, what do I need to do to make the amend? Those are the 4 that I was taught. And I've always known that one of the only problems with step 8, and the steps are God's perfection. I mean, they're absolutely perfect, but there is the limitation of step 8 is that I can only make a list of people that I've harmed that I'm aware of. It is certainly possible that I owe amends to people. I have harmed people that I just don't know about. Wouldn't you say? Isn't that the case? That I can harm people and I was drunk, or I'm just not even aware. You know, the thing that I did that harmed my father the most, I wasn't even aware that the thing that I did was harming him in the first place. Okay. And then one day my sponsee went and made amends. Whenever possible, I always try to be the first person that they talk to after making an amend, wherever possible. I want them to come talk to me right away. And we talk about what happened. And usually they're amazing, incredible good news stories, and everyone's very happy about it. One sponsee came to me and he said, you know what, I made this amend and it was all good and blah, blah, blah. But they said who I really needed to go make amends to was this other person. And I got it immediately. It dawned on me, of course, that's what we need to do. That's the last thing that I believe we need to ask after making the amend. Is there anyone else that you can think of that I might owe amends to? And they might say, yeah, you need to make amends to this person. You say, great, you know what, they're on my list and I'm going to make amends to them next week. You might say like, oh man, I harmed them. How did I harm them? You know, and whatever it is, more will be revealed and we'll learn more about who we can make amends to. I think just by asking that simple question, we'll get more of an opportunity to clear up the wreckage of our past, some of which we may not be aware of, and more will be disclosed to us over time. Okay. So that's it, guys. That's tactically how we do a step 9. Again, with a sponsor can help us to determine direct versus indirect amends. What amends can I do directly where I'm not going to cause additional harm? If I am going to cause additional harm, what may be a good indirect amend to make? Some people talk about living amends. I do agree with living amends, but in addition to a direct amend or indirect amend, like an actual tactical, tangible amend process that was engaged in. But then just because I made amends to my mom effectively one time many years ago, I still make living amends to her every day. You know, great AA speaker Russell Spatz once said that when you get sober, you're like doing step 3 and then you're doing step 4 and then you're doing step 9. But over time in life, you just start to play jazz with all 12 steps and it just becomes a full working way of life. And you start to understand that step 12 can be step 9 and it can be step 3 and it also has to do with step 7 and that can be part of a step 5 and so on. It just becomes a way of life. Okay. The last thing I want to say about it, and I see some people dropping off and that's fine. So don't drop off all the way. We'll close up. I have one more thing to say. We'll finish the meeting. We'll close with the Lord's Prayer, and then we'll go around the room and everyone can say hello and let us know where you're from, because we got people here from all over the world, and it's the coolest thing. Just the coolest thing, man. I love it every week. I'm very happy to see you guys all the time. The idea of sorry, okay? Do I say sorry when I'm making an amend? This is, I will share with you guys what I believe, what I think. I think that making an amend is not about saying we're sorry. There is more to it than that. But I also think that saying sorry can be part of a bigger amend. And I know that there are some people that want to hear us say that we're sorry. There's this belief in AA that like, man, we're alcoholics. We've just said sorry our whole lives. Every day we're sorry for this, we're sorry for that, we're sorry for this, and we need to stop saying we're sorry. I don't think we can paint every alcoholic with that same brush. I can tell you that I lived with an alcoholic for a long time who would say the words, I'm sorry, if you held a gun to her head. Okay. And I will tell you that that's when I realized that sometimes it may be that saying sorry in the midst of a larger amend process can actually be a very healing thing. I know that's probably a controversial thing to say. I know typically in AA, it's all about this is amends. This is not about saying we're sorry. This is about fixing, right? That's what mending is. When they amend the Criminal Code of Canada, they don't all stand around in the House of Commons and apologize to each other. They change it. Okay. Oh, that's something else I forgot. I'm sorry, guys. When we say, when we talk about how I harmed people, I want to show evidence of change. We'll do a little review on this next week. I want to show evidence of change. Okay. I know I stole from you. That was very selfish and self-centered. I want you to know I'm someone that does not steal today. I know that I consistently showed up late and was irresponsible. I want you to know that was selfish and self-centered. And I'm a guy who really strives to be on time today and show up for work every day, whatever it might be. Okay, I want to show evidence of change. That is part of the amend process, making amends. I do think though that we don't have to keep sorry completely out of our vocabulary. I think that there are times that some people want to hear us say that we're sorry. And for them, that is the amend, because maybe we have never really said that to someone. I just think it merits consideration. Anyway, guys, that's it for tonight. That is step 9 for the Fourth Dimension Big Book study tonight.